Kurt Wildheim on, I believe it was March 12th of 1979.
Okay.
He had an appointment, and so he travelled to New York on that day, on March 12th, 79, to meet with Kurt Waldheim to present to him his evidence, or what he had to say about evidence for extraterrestrial life. On that day, Maurice Bishop overthrew Gary. When he arrives in the United States, Gary is taken into protective custody by the State Department.
Right.
He's no longer a head of state. He no longer has status to meet with the Secretary General.
Right. There's
That
just
tells you a
something
lot.
strange going on. Yes, okay.
Tells you a lot.
I'm not going to pursue that too much further because I wasn't trying to get into conspiracy theory discussion and all that type of thing. But yeah, there was definitely something very interesting about that. I had read online at one point that they thought that he was hiding evidence, had physical evidence, maybe even a body somewhere. And there was apparently a medical school down there when the U.S. did the invasion. There were over 800 American medical students at a school in Grenada that the American, that somehow or another the American military just kind of went in there and we're going to help you guys out and save you. There's just a lot there that doesn't seem to add up. So let me move past that. Something I've been asking a lot of different people. Your academic experience kind of speaks to this, but this whole idea of skeptics and debunkers and these other people that are out there fighting against whatever it is that we're all doing here. That in and of itself doesn't make much sense, but I wanted to just get your comments on the entire field of skeptics and debunkers when it comes to this subject. I mean, are there any valid skeptics out there? Are there people who really are doing the kind of work that it would take to somehow...
Right. Well, the main thing is that there's a difference between truth and proof.
Right.
We're very interested in the truth about this whole phenomenon. Kind of dig and ask people and find out what's going on.
Sure.
Whereas there are those that say, no. This has to be scientifically grounded. If you're going to listen to anyone, there has to be proof.
Right.
And if a person doesn't have a sufficient level of proof to substantiate what they're saying, then you discard it. And unfortunately, what happens is that you have this group of people call themselves skeptics, debunkers. Some of them are actually kind of more scientific ufologists, and they kind of demand a high kind of evidentiary standard that they regard as being proof.
Sure.
And if you're going to be talking about anyone or an event or any process that isn't grounded sufficiently in evidence that amounts to proof, then they say discard it. It's you're kind of like you're diluting the field. You're basically bringing in incredible sources. You're bringing in sources that lack legitimacy or lack solid evidentiary confirmation. But the thing is that in this field, you meet a lot of people that say to you, I worked in this agency, this is what I saw. And you say, can we go on the record? And say, no way. No way.
Right.
No way. This is anonymous. You don't say anything about, what I've told you or what I've said. In terms of me, you can tell the story, but don't mention my name.
Sure.
Because people are frightened.
Right.
People disappear in this way. And so this is the problem. So you can learn the truth, but you don't have proof.
Right.
And you can meet people that are really sincere. They'll show you their IDs, they'll show you their records, they'll show you pictures. You're proving they'll even give you details. Here's my name and all of that. And you can go out and you research and you say, yeah, this guy's real.
And it checks out.
It checks out. But then they'll tell you, don't go public with my name. And so what you have is this classic situation where you have been exposed to something that checks out, so in your view it's truth, but you can't prove it to the skeptic.
Right.
And so then you have the skeptic attacking you, well, you're using unsubstantiated, uncorroborated sources, you're a charlatan, and they kind of get on that field, and it's just like, okay.
And the other thing too, and this is what's interesting about the Institute, is this idea, I heard you make this comment, that if people aren't researching the same information, then any debates or discussions that they have are useless. They're completely useless. Because you've done all this research. If I haven't done at least some of the same research that you have, I don't know how I could speak intelligently on it and have a useful dialogue about it. But you're able to do this with the Institute, the Exopolitics Institute. The people you've involved have done some of the same research, is that right?
That's yeah. There's a lot of overlap.
Yeah.
I mean, people are doing their own projects.
Sure.
But there's a sufficient overlap. But what we do in the institute is, we try to emphasise that this is kind of like the core of what will be a think tank one day, a well-funded think tank where people get funded to go do the research, to kind of interview people, do analysis on whatever evidence they find.
Right.
But that we maintain a kind of a scholarly discussion. We listen to people, we have an open mind, and we're prepared to kind of like run with ideas and explore them and investigate, and which is what a think tank does.
Sure.
That we're not there to kind of like attack our colleagues that might be pursuing something that we think is questionable.
Right.
We can raise questions and say, well, I mean, do you really believe that this source is telling you the truth? Because according to my sources, he's a psyop. He's part of the Simpo campaign. Right. So then we talk about that and we share information. Because I think the good an analogy for this, and something Steve Bassett used, is like we have like a 5,000 word, a 5,000 piece jigsaw puzzle, and someone, the intelligence agencies, have come along and taken out hundreds of pieces, taken it away, and replaced it with these false pieces. And we're trying to make sense of this and arguing, well, this piece goes here. Exactly.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, and so we have enough idea of the big picture, but the details we're constantly arguing because, key pieces are being taken out or they're being replaced with false information.
Right. It's very interesting. Now, paralleling that, are you aware of any sort of, you can use any terminology you need to, any sort of Congress or institute or anything that has a successful dialogue going on between the major world religions? It's really, to me, almost the exact same issue, but you have the Pope comes out and speaks sort of on behalf of Christianity, maybe, or some people want to disregard what he has to say, and other people take it seriously. But where is the leadership for the Hindu community and the Buddhist community and the Muslim community? And is there any sort of dialogue going on between those parties at all that you're aware of?
Well, there was an effort to try to include the kind of exopolitical ET perspective into an ongoing dialogue that has had meetings at the UN, the interfaith dialogue.
Right.
The UN has hosted some meetings where all the leaders from different religious communities, spiritual communities, come together and talk. We have tried to kind of like build a bridge or open up a dialogue with the people organising that.
Right.
But they have said that no, this is not something that we want to
Really?
do. Yes, they're kind of closed.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I didn't expect that answer, actually.
Right, yeah. And even though we can say that, well, these religious traditions talk about extraterrestrial life, we can make that argument because it's there.
Right.
But they still say, no, this is something between the different faiths, and we don't want to have people coming here talking about extraterrestrials.
The reason that I bring that up is because, one, I think that it's a totally different path in some respects, but there's a lot of people there. There's a lot of young people there that are involved in their faiths and their religions that could be useful in the field just from those experiences. I mean, you think about some of the stuff Graham Hancock was talking about with the mystical side of all of this. But the hard evidence is there in staggering proportions, and this is one of the other things that brought me to want to talk to you in particular, that I had heard you comment at least a couple of times about Zecharia Sitchin's work. How familiar are you with Sitchin's work? Have you read all of those books, and how much credibility do you give his theories and the stuff that he talks about?
I think there's a lot to his work. Some of it has been confirmed by other scholars that show that yes, the Sumerians did actually believe that they were being helped by the gods, the Anunnaki.
Right.
and that was their worldview, and that they were helped in developing their civilization.
Right.
And I think he's substantially correct there, and it certainly kind of is consistent with a lot of the literature or a lot of the ancient records as they've been transcribed. It kind of fits. It's an explanation.
It really seems to, right?
Right. So there might be some parts that aren't quite accurate, and I know that as a scholar, he's been faulted in terms of well, he doesn't kind of give references. I mean, he refers to a lot of different records in a particular library, but he doesn't give footnote 55 is you go see cuneiform text 1534 in the London Museum. So
right.
He doesn't do that, and that's led to a lot of people faulting him, saying, well, if he's a genuine scholar, then he'll do the citation, because otherwise it's harder to confirm, because it's going to have a big mass of literature.
Sure.
And it's a little harder to confirm that.
Right. I have an email early on in my work that I had done, just reading books and trying to do a little bit of homework. Maybe some other time I'll have the opportunity to tell you the backstory about this, but I sent an email to a guy by the name of McGuire Gibson. He's a professor at the University of Chicago. He's a professor of Mesopotamian archaeology, and just to do it, because I didn't think I had any other excuse, I sent him an email and asked him if he was familiar with Sitchin and what did he think of his work. This is his answer right here, if you'd like to read that real quick. I was very surprised at that response from him. And without going into a big discussion about this, it would seem to me that of all the people walking the planet, that a professor of Mesopotamian archaeology would know who a guy like Sitchin was, just based on the odds of how many books could possibly have been written on this subject. Anyway, I thought that was pretty startling. So, talking about conventional academics, you had mentioned something, I don't know if this was a catchphrase that you came up with or had used, but something called a mythical worldview that we're sort of battling against here. That it's the same thing that you kind of said before about truth, where it just is what it is. It's just this is the truth, these are the facts, and all these other realities and things that they want to throw at us to just don't exist. It's not real. I mean, that theme has been repeated by many people over the course of this weekend. Do you see yourself getting that kind of support with your work at the Institute, the people that are coming to you? I mean, do you have people literally coming to you, or are you sort of out recruiting them to get them to work with the Institute?
It's a little bit of both. Mainly at this stage, we're kind of pretty small, limited resources, so we kind of really are trying to work with researchers as opposed to, getting the general public to come on board. We have some people volunteering to help with transcribing, videotapes or conference tapes.
Right.
We kind of like sometimes try to solicit articles for the journal.
Right.
We promote the courses.
Sure.
But at the moment, we still are kind of very limited in terms of resources.
Right.
It's really just a small office that we have there, and we don't have anything like kind of resources that a major think tank would have.
Right.
So our outreach isn't that great, and of course the Big Island is just like,
sure.
People rarely come to the Big Island to visit a kind of a research,